And for more, we're joined by Shadow Finance Minister Jess Wilson. Jess, good afternoon to you. The government says families and cost of living relief was the focus of the budget. Was it?
Afternoon, Dougal. Well, what we've seen in Labor's 10th budget is a culmination of 10 years of financial mismanagement in this state. We've got a situation where our debt levels have grown from 21 billion to 188 billion in 2028, where our tax take has grown from 17 billion to 45 billion dollars in 2028. And by 2028, Victorians will be paying 25 million dollars each and every day in interest payments alone. That does nothing to reduce the cost of living pressures on Victoria. And what we've seen in the budget today is not only an increase to debt, an increase in taxes, an increase in spending, but we're seeing cuts right across the board. Whether that's in education, whether that's delays to infrastructure projects, whether that's health projects and hospitals being cut, we've seen cuts right across the board, which means Victorians are paying the price for the fact that Labor cannot manage money.
You're talking about reining in spending, but is sick pay for casuals being scrapped and pre-prep being delayed in some areas? Are those cuts okay?
Well, we've got a situation here where the Labor government's signature policy around pre-prep, around kinder reform, has been delayed because they cannot manage the budget, they cannot manage money, and they're going to have to push out these much-needed places and accessibility places for kinder in particular out down the road. That means the Victorian families won't be able to access these services, and that will particularly hurt regional Victoria, where there simply aren't enough childcare places, where kinder is already under pressure, and now we're kicking it down the road because the government cannot manage the budget.
$400 per child for the school saving bonus. Will that help families?
We're always looking for options to put a cost of living relief on families, but what this shows is that Labor continues to not fund education right across our state. Victoria's schools are underfunded, among some of the most underfunded in the country. The Labor government here in Victoria is not stepping up to the plate and actually meeting their funding commitment for government schools. So while the $400 may be a sugar hit for some school communities, it does not provide that long-term relief. It does not provide the infrastructure needed. What we've seen in the budget today is 29 schools have the bad news that their election commitments are not funded in this budget. Those desperately needed upgrades to school classrooms, to learning facilities right across the state will not be repaired, they will not be improved, and school children have to go and learn in classrooms that are simply not up to scratch.
And it looks like Airport Rail has been delayed by at least another 4 years. Do you think Airport Rail will ever get built in Victoria?
Well, I think we can see under the Labor government that there's no plan to build Airport Rail. And what we've seen in the budget today is infrastructure delays right across the board. And what we've also seen is a lack of transparency when it comes to the funding for the suburban rail loop. There's simply no outlong funding for the suburban rail loop, particularly for those capital works that are going to be required. We've got a government that likes to talk about building big infrastructure projects, but they're not being funded, and it's being delayed and delayed in the budget today.
All right, Jess Wilson, thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks, Dougal.